The town of Grimwyck was the kind of place that did not appear on maps. It existed at the edge of the world, where the ocean stretched into the mist and the sky hung gray and heavy, pressing down like a tombstone. No one came to Grimwyck unless they had nowhere else to go. And once they arrived, they never left. The job offer had arrived in the form of a letter with no return address. We require a lighthouse keeper for Grimwyck Light. Room and board included. Salary generous. Thomas Grayson should have questioned it. He should have wondered how they had found him, how they had known he was on the verge of homelessness. But he had nowhere else to go. So he packed his bags and boarded a ship to a town he knew nothing about. When he arrived, the people of Grimwyck barely acknowledged him. Faces pale and sunken, voices low, eyes that never met his own for too long. The harbor master, an old man with a twisted spine, handed him a lighthouse key with fingers that trembled. "Keep the lights burning, lad," the man murmured. "No matter what you see, no matter what you hear." Then he turned away as if he had already said too much. Something was wrong here. Thomas felt in his bones. And yet, the lighthouse was waiting for him. And something inside was waiting too. The lighthouse was ancient, its walls slick with moisture, the air inside thick with the scent of salt and decay. The moment he entered, he saw it. A journal resting on a desk in the keeper's quarters. Its pages were warped by damp air. The name Arthur Bell was scrawled across the cover. Thomas opened it. At first, the entries were mundane. Weather patterns, tides, complaints, and loneliness. But then, the writing changed. The letters became jagged and frantic. "There's something wrong with Grimwyck. The ocean is empty. The fish have stopped biting. The people are waiting." Thomas turned the page, his breath quickening. "I know now why they hired me. The lighthouse keeper is not a job. It's an offering." Thomas's fingers tightened on the paper. The final entry was written in deep, scratched-in ink, as though Arthur Bell had been shaking when he wrote it. "If you are reading this, it's already too late." Outside, the bell tolled. A storm was coming, and with it, they would rise. The sky would split open with lightning. The ocean, so still that morning, now roared with unnatural fury, waves pounding against the cliffs. Thomas stepped outside, shielding his eyes from the rain, and then he saw them. The villagers of Grimwyck stood on the rocky shores, still and silent, their faces tilted towards the churning sea. They were not afraid. They were waiting. Then they began to chant. Their words were impossible, twisting in his ear, curling into his mind like the legs of some unseen creature. A whispering voice slithering through the air. "We offer! We offer! We offer!" Then the sea answered. Thomas raced up the spiraling stairs, heart hammering against his ribs. He had to keep the light burning. If the beacon died, they would take him. His hand shook as he grabbed the oil canister, fumbling to refill the lantern. Outside, the creatures clawed at the walls. Inside, something moved in the darkness. A shape stood at the bottom of the stairs, tall and full of scales. The fish creature did not move. It was waiting. Thomas's hands trembled as he struck a match. It did not light. The shadow began to climb, slowly and deliberately. The second match snapped in his fingers. The shadow reached the final step. He struck the third match. It sparked to life. The lantern roared, golden light flooding the room. The creatures screamed, their twisted bodies melting into the mist. Thomas collapsed, gasping as the storm began to fade. The sea receded, and below, on the shore, The villages of Grimwyck stared up at him. Their eyes burned with fury, because the deal was broken. The Deep Ones had not been fed, and now Grimwyck would pay. The ocean pulled back further and further until the water was gone. The fish were gone. The town was forsaken, and the people of Grimwyck knew what they had to do. They turned away from the Dead Sea and began climbing the cliffs. Their knives gleamed in the failing light. Their lips murmured prayers not to save him, but to silence his screams. No ships came to Grimwyck anymore. The lighthouse stood empty, its beacon shattered. The sea was dead. The town had withered. But in the abandoned tower, a journal remained, waiting for the next keeper, for the next offering. And somewhere beneath the earth, beneath the dead, empty sea, something still waited.